A respected Texas adoption attorney is accused of operating a black market scheme involving the sale and purchase of unborn children. As the investigation unfolds, layers of corruption, manipulation, and human exploitation come to light, and the victims are more vulnerable than anyone imagined. The call that started everything September 2024. Houston, Texas. It began with a voicemail. Detective Rachel Esparza had been with the Harris County Sheriff's Office for nearly a decade, and she'd learned to recognize when something wasn't quite right. But this voicemail? It wasn't the kind she could file away and forget. A woman, young, hesitant, and trembling with fear, had left the message in the early hours of a humid Tuesday morning. "I'm pregnant, and I don't know what to do." He said it was legal, but it doesn't feel legal. The caller didn't leave her name, only a number and a final, panicked whisper. "Please don't let him find out I called you." That same day, Esparza called the number back. A woman named Amanda answered, barely. Her voice cracked. She didn't want to talk over the phone. Could they meet? What Amanda revealed in that first, clandestine meeting at a coffee shop outside Katie was enough to leave even the most hardened detective stunned. She said she'd met a man through a friend of a friend. He was polite, professional, even seemed kind. "He told me he was an adoption attorney," Amanda explained, her hands trembling as she clutched her decaf coffee. "Said he helps young women like me find the right home for their baby. He promised money, and that no one needed to know. But then it got weird. He said he could pre-sell the baby." Esparza tried not to react, but inside, her mind was racing. "Pre-sell?" Amanda went on. The man had shown her contracts, papers that looked official, notarized. He'd even offered a bonus if she could get other girls, preferably white, young, healthy, to consider giving up their babies too. Amanda had brought evidence, emails, cash receipts, even screenshots of text messages that sent a chill down Esparza's spine. The name on the documents? Clint Allen West, a prominent Houston-based adoption attorney. Respected, certified, licensed, and now under suspicion of trafficking unborn children. The rise of Clint Allen West wasn't some back-alley hustler. He had degrees, credentials, glowing reviews from adoptive parents, and more than 15 years of experience. He ran a boutique adoption firm called West Family Solutions with offices in Houston and Austin. His website was sleek, professional. His motto? Every child deserves a loving home. He was known in certain circles as a miracle worker. If adoptive parents had been on long wait lists or denied by other agencies, West somehow made it happen. But to Esparza, something didn't add up. Digging into his background, she uncovered sealed civil cases from 2018 and 2021 involving contract disputes with birth mothers. Nothing criminal, but the language in the court filings was vague. Confidential settlements, non-disclosure agreements, no details on what really happened. Esparza pulled in a team, including FBI child exploitation specialists and members of the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services, DFPS. A quiet, months-long investigation began. They started combing through adoption files, tracing financial records, and interviewing women who had once worked with Clint West. What they uncovered would become one of the most disturbing adoption-related crimes in modern U.S. history. A pattern of exploitation. Amanda wasn't the only one. Within weeks, 2 more women came forward, separately, after hearing whispers in private support groups for expectant mothers. Both claimed West had approached them under the guise of offering adoption help. But each story followed a hauntingly similar pattern. Initial contact via social media or word of mouth. Emotional encouragement wrapped in legal-sounding language. A promise of assistance or expenses that ballooned into tens of thousands of dollars. Not through a licensed agency, but through backdoor payments made in cash or cryptocurrency. Confidentiality agreements that warned of severe legal penalties if the women backed out or spoke to the media. Some of the documents West used mimicked legitimate Texas adoption contracts, but others bordered on coercion. One included a clause that referred to purchase price instead of adoption fees. That language was a red flag. Esparza and the legal team realized that West had created a paper trail so murky, so legally gray, it had managed to slip through the cracks for years. His contracts walked a fine line between legal private adoption arrangements and outright human trafficking. But West hadn't accounted for Amanda or the quiet determination of the team now watching his every move. The sting operation in early February 2025, investigators set up a sting. They posed as a financially secure couple looking to pre-match with a pregnant woman for adoption. They contacted West through his website, and he responded within a day. What followed was a series of email exchanges and phone calls, all recorded, in which West explained his exclusive client matching program. He said he could find them a baby within 3 months. "We've already got a girl lined up, 5 months along," he said. "Healthy, no drugs, no complications. We're offering her $20,000, but that includes expenses, of course." When the undercover agent asked if that included placement costs, West replied bluntly, "Call it whatever you want. It gets the job done." That was all they needed. On March 7, 2025, the FBI and Harris County Sheriff's Office raided Clint West's law offices and seized dozens of adoption files, computers, hard drives, and bank records. West was arrested at his home in the River Oaks neighborhood and charged with attempting to purchase and sell unborn children, engaging in child trafficking under Texas Penal Code Section 28.02, wire fraud, conspiracy to commit adoption fraud. His mugshot stunned the community. The man they trusted with life-changing family decisions was now accused of being a baby broker. The fallout as the news broke. Local media outlets swarmed the courthouse. Adoptive parents and birth mothers began flooding hotlines. Some were angry, some confused, some terrified they had unknowingly participated in a black market operation. But that was only the beginning. Buried deep within the files taken from West's office was a list of over 60 women, some with only first names or initials, who were allegedly contracted to give birth under West's guidance between 2017 and 2025. Among them, teenage girls, homeless women, women from shelters. Several were undocumented immigrants. Some had vanished. Others were found. But their stories, as they slowly began to come out, revealed the full scope of manipulation and control West had exercised for nearly a decade. This wasn't a one-off crime. It was a system, a network, and possibly a criminal enterprise that extended far beyond Texas. And at the center of it all, a man whose smiling photo once graced brochures under the words, "Creating Forever Families." Contracts, coercion, and the women who tried to run. December 2023. Lubbock, Texas. The first time Camille Dorsey met Clint West, she was sitting in a folding chair in the back room of a pregnancy resource center. She was 19, 5 months, pregnant, and had just been kicked out of her boyfriend's apartment. Her world was unraveling. West walked in wearing a tailored navy blue suit and a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He said, "I was brave, that I was doing the right thing," Camille recalled during a later interview with investigators. He said he could take care of everything: the hospital, the baby, even my rent for the next 3 months. All I had to do was sign some forms. Camille's voice trembled as she described the forms. There were too many pages to read, and everything was rushed. West had already printed her name. All she had to do was sign. He said, "Just think of it like you're gifting a family the life they always dreamed of, and they're giving you a little something in return." That little something turned out to be $25,000 in cash, stuffed in a duffel bag and handed off in a Starbucks parking lot. No bank wires, no receipts. Camille had no idea she was part of an illegal transaction. The fine line between legal and criminal private adoptions, especially in Texas, can operate in legally murky territory. Under state law, it's permissible for adoptive parents to cover certain reasonable living expenses for the birth mother. But there are strict limitations. Paying a birth mother directly for her baby is human trafficking. The law draws a clear line between support and purchase. Clint West blurred that line expertly. Investigators now believe he built an entire model around manipulating legal adoption language, hiding behind confidentiality clauses, exploiting desperate women, and preying on the desires of adoptive couples who were either unaware of the law or willing to look the other way. Detective Rachel Esparza described it as a perfect storm of legal gymnastics, emotional manipulation, and willful ignorance. "He made it look clean," she said. "But once you peel back the layers, what you see is trafficking, just dressed up in a suit and tie." The women who tried to run Camille wasn't the only one. Another woman, Vanessa Lugo, had signed a similar contract. But when she changed her mind in her 7th month and said she wanted to keep the baby, West allegedly threatened her. He told me I'd have to pay everything back. Vanessa later testified in a deposition. Said I'd be sued. I'd be blacklisted. He showed me a contract that said I owed over $38,000 if I backed out. I was terrified. She ended up giving the baby up, not because she wanted to, but because she felt she had no choice. Still, Vanessa was one of the lucky ones. She survived. Others simply vanished. That a DFPS audit of West's client records revealed at least 7 women whose contracts had dates, but no corresponding hospital discharge information, no birth certificates, no records of adoption finalization. In other words, these babies were never officially documented. That's when federal agents started whispering the word pipeline, cracking the code behind West's legitimate law firm. Authorities uncovered a parallel operation. Dozens of encrypted emails between West and at least 3 unnamed intermediaries located in Arizona, Florida, and Mexico. These contacts used aliases like Jazz Blue, Family One, and Gabriel 212. In one message, Jazz Blue wrote, "Got another girl. 22, Latina, healthy. Due January. Can she get the same rate as the last one? We'll use the clinic in Edinburgh again." Another message had a spreadsheet attached. It listed initials, due dates, and arrangements. Some entries included strange codes like 20K/fast route or 12K/INTL intendeds. What did fast route mean? Who were INTL intendeds? Federal agents feared the answer. International buyers, by the end of March 2025, they believed Clint West wasn't just illegally arranging adoptions within Texas. He was possibly trafficking newborns across state lines, and maybe even overseas, victims or criminals. This revelation triggered a moral and legal dilemma. Were the birth mothers victims of fraud? Or co-conspirators in an illegal baby-selling ring? The Texas Attorney General's office took a cautious stance. Most women were considered victims, vulnerable, desperate, and manipulated by a professional with legal expertise. But some, particularly those who recruited other pregnant women in exchange for cash bonuses, might face lesser charges. That a 24-year-old woman named Renee, who had recruited 3 pregnant women in just over a year, told investigators. Clint said it was like being a scout. He said if I found girls who didn't want the baby and didn't want questions, I could earn $2,000 per match. That was more than I made in 3 months waiting tables. Renee later broke down in tears. I didn't think of it as selling babies. I thought I was helping. Legal loopholes, broken systems. The West case revealed just how outdated and vulnerable the American adoption system really is. No national adoption database. Each state handles records separately, making it easy to hide patterns of abuse. Minimal oversight of private attorneys. Unlike licensed agencies, attorneys are not subject to the same regulatory inspections. Lack of protections for birth mothers. Many of West's victims didn't even have their own legal counsel present when they signed binding contracts. It wasn't just a matter of criminal behavior. It was also systemic failure. In a televised statement, U.S. Attorney Gloria Ramos summarized the gravity of the situation. This is not just the story of one corrupt attorney. This is a wake-up call. When the adoption process is allowed to happen, in the shadows, behind closed doors, we create a system ripe for abuse. Clint West took advantage of that darkness. The adoption community reacts. The fallout rippled far beyond the courtroom. Advocacy groups across the U.S. were rocked by the scandal. Some adoptive families feared their own adoptions might be reversed if they were connected to West's firm. One anonymous couple who adopted a baby through West in 2021 said in a statement, "We went through the process thinking everything was legitimate. Now we're terrified our child could be taken from us." Family courts across Texas were inundated with motions to review or audit adoptions facilitated by West. So far, at least 4 children have been temporarily removed from adoptive homes, while investigations continue. In a tragic twist, some of the birth mothers involved in West's network now face the terrifying possibility that they will never know what happened to their babies or where they ended up. West speaks. Briefly, Clint West has maintained his innocence. In a single statement issued by his defense attorney, he claimed, "I have spent my career helping children and families. These allegations are not only false, They are politically motivated. I look forward to clearing my name. He has declined all interviews. His bail was initially denied due to flight risk, but the evidence is growing by the day, and so is the public outrage. The files they tried to bury, March 2025. Houston, Texas, they almost missed it, buried behind rows of family law files. Hidden inside a locked fireproof cabinet in the basement of West Family Solutions were 2 encrypted hard drives. Detectives found them only after a junior agent noticed a faint hum behind a wooden wall panel and traced it to an active backup power source. It wasn't just about adoption paperwork anymore. This was the motherlode. The drives were labeled innocuously, Client Archives 3 and Inactive Matches Archive, but what they contained would blow the case wide open and push Clint West's legal problems from bad to catastrophic. Unlocking the secrets, it took federal tech analysts more than 2 weeks to crack the drives. The encryption was sophisticated, custom-coded, and disguised as a legal case management software. But once opened, it revealed something even seasoned agents weren't prepared for. There were over 900 files, not just adoption applications or client contracts, but detailed profiles of pregnant women, each with photos, medical records, psychological evaluations, ethnicity, classifications, genetic histories. Some were even graded. Each woman was assigned a letter rating, A, B, C, and in some cases, D, based on a chilling combination of appearance, background, and likelihood to comply. In short, Clint West had created a market-driven valuation system for unborn children, like inventory in a warehouse. A, blonde, white, 21, clean background, college student. B, Latina, 26, anxiety meds history, no family support. Cash preferred, even more disturbing. Many profiles were labeled pre-booked, with notes such as, matched with international couple, Belgium. Funds cleared. Due October, induce if past term. These weren't just adoptions. These were transactions, with birth dates, expected delivery locations, and payment receipts attached. The foreign pipeline investigators quickly zeroed in on a pattern. Many of the pre-booked babies were slated for clients outside the United States. Point 1 encrypted folder contained communication logs with a shell company based in Antwerp, Belgium, registered under a real estate holding firm. But the email traffic told a different story. We'd like to reserve the October/NOV baby girl. No parental contact, clean background only. Prefer discreet delivery window. Other countries mentioned in the files included Germany, South Korea, Canada, United Arab Emirates. Some clients appeared legitimate, wealthy families desperate for adoption in countries with restrictive laws. But several buyer profiles had red flags. Unverifiable income, anonymous payment methods, and addresses linked to known trafficking hotspots. Clint West, it appeared, wasn't just exploiting U.S. law. He was possibly operating an international black market adoption ring. The whistleblower inside all this darkness, one unexpected voice helped bring everything into the light. A former intern named Juliet Kramer. She was 24, newly graduated from the University of Houston Law Center, and had interned with West for 2 semesters. She thought she was learning about adoption law. What she witnessed, however, never sat right. I was told not to ask questions, Juliet later told federal investigators in a private debrief. He made it clear, our birth moms are very sensitive. You don't want to spook them. Just get the paperwork, no lectures. But in early January 2025, Juliet was asked to notarize a document that struck her as odd. It wasn't addressed to a Texas court, nor did it include a judge's signature. Instead, it read more like a power of attorney, granting full legal custody of a yet-to-be-born child to a foreign couple listed only by initials. She refused to sign. A week later, her internship was terminated without explanation. What West didn't know was that Juliet had taken screenshots of dozens of emails and document drafts. She gave them to a friend in law enforcement, and they eventually reached Detective Rachel Esparza. Without Juliet's documentation, investigators might never have uncovered the full extent of West's fast route system, his in-house label for expedited international deliveries of newborns, often bypassing traditional immigration procedures. We were just desperate to be parents back in the U.S. Dozens of adoptive couples were starting to realize they may have been complicit in a criminal enterprise. Some had flown to Texas. paid what they believed were legal placement fees, and left with newborns within 48 hours. No waiting periods, no official agencies, just a few notarized documents and a warm congratulations from West. Many believed they were operating within the law, and perhaps some truly were duped. But prosecutors say others knew something wasn't right and chose not to ask questions. In one chilling case, a couple from New Jersey paid over $70,000 in cash for a baby girl born to a 19-year-old who was homeless and had no legal counsel. When investigators reached out to the couple, their response was guarded. "We just wanted a child. If something's wrong with the paperwork, that's on Clint. We followed his instructions." But for prosecutors, intent doesn't always matter. If a child was purchased, the law was broken. Federal charges expand. By April 2025. Clint West was facing 22 additional federal charges, including international child trafficking, money laundering, conspiracy to violate the Inter-Country Adoption Act, forgery of legal documents, false notarization of court filings. He pleaded not guilty to all charges, with his legal team arguing that creative adoption strategies do not equate to trafficking. But the government's case was growing stronger by the day, and the public pressure was mounting. News outlets across the country aired special reports. Activists flooded the Texas legislature demanding reform. Even international governments began reaching out, asking for investigations into U.S. origin adoptions that occurred under suspicious circumstances. The woman who went missing then came a terrifying discovery. One of the files in the encrypted drive, labeled YM D-Class, due March 2024, corresponded to a 17-year-old named Yasmin Mendoza who had been living in a group home outside McAllen, Texas. The Yasmin's file showed she had been matched to a couple in Dubai. Hospital records showed she gave birth at a private birthing center and then disappeared. No discharge papers, no forwarding address, no confirmed flight. To this day, Yasmin has not been found. Federal agents fear she may have been trafficked alongside her newborn, making her not only a victim of illegal adoption, but a possible victim of modern-day slavery. The public turns on the system as more stories like Yasmin's came to light. The outrage shifted from Clint West to the broken infrastructure that enabled him. Why weren't private adoption lawyers more heavily regulated? Why didn't Texas have stricter oversight over expenses paid to birth mothers? How could international adoptions happen without rigorous background checks? One powerful clip from a town hall meeting in Austin showed a sobbing birth mother named Tasha holding a faded sonogram. "He said this would help me. He said they'd send me pictures. I never got one. I don't even know what state my baby's in. I don't know if she's alive." Trial by fire. The state of Texas versus Clint Allen West, May 2025. Harris County Criminal Court, Texas. The line outside the courthouse wrapped around the block before sunrise. Reporters, protesters, and curious onlookers waited for a seat inside the most controversial trial Texas had seen in years. The state of Texas versus Clint Allen West, a once respected adoption attorney now accused of running a black market operation, trafficking unborn children. Inside, the atmosphere was electric with tension. Prosecutors promised to reveal the full scope of West's crimes, an empire built on desperation, deception, and dollar signs. Defense attorneys, on the other hand, prepared to argue that the real villain was not their client, but a flawed and outdated system, and that West merely operated within it, creatively. But from the moment the jury was seated, it became clear. This wasn't going to be a legal debate. It was going to be a moral reckoning. Opening statements. The battle lines drawn. Assistant District Attorney Celeste Moreno opened for the prosecution. "What you're about to hear is not an adoption story. It's a trafficking story. Mr. West used the illusion of legality to buy and sell human lives, not in the shadows, but in broad daylight. And he did it for profit. This case is about stolen choices, stolen babies, and the system he corrupted to get them." She paused and then pointed at West. "This man made himself the gatekeeper to motherhood and exploited women who had nowhere else to go." The courtroom was silent. Then, defense attorney Garrett Rowe stood, slick and confident, ready with a different narrative. "This is not a trial about trafficking. It's a trial about semantics and sensationalism. Mr. West operated within the bounds of Texas family law, perhaps aggressively, yes, but legally. He didn't force anyone. He didn't kidnap anyone. Every birth mother signed. Every adoptive family wanted a child. Where's the crime in that? He finished with a jab. At the prosecution, this is not justice. This is a political performance. Testimonies begin. Stories that haunt the prosecution wasted no time introducing their star witnesses, the birth mothers. Camille Dorsey took the stand first, dressed modestly, her voice trembling but resolute. She described her initial meetings with West, the rushed paperwork, the untraceable cash exchange, and the moment she was told, "You're doing a good thing. Don't complicate it now." Camille said she never received legal counsel, never saw a judge, and never agreed to the final adoption location. Her daughter, born in March 2024, was handed to a couple from Canada. Camille hasn't seen her since. "I thought it was legal. I thought I'd at least get photos or updates. But I never even learned her name." When defense cross-examined, Rowe attempted to chip away at her credibility. "Ms. Dorsey, you received $25,000, correct? You signed a waiver, correct? Did anyone force you?" Camille looked at him. "Not with their hands. But when you're homeless and 5 months pregnant, you don't need to be pushed. You just need someone to hold the door open in the wrong direction." Her words hung in the courtroom like a fog. The files on the screen next. The prosecution introduced damning digital evidence from the seized hard drives, the infamous grading system, payment logs, and foreign correspondence. One email read aloud. In court, girl in Odessa ready to deliver. No state interference. Arrange clean handoff. Dubai couple in transit. ADA Moreno turned to the jury. "This isn't adoption. This is logistics. This is supply and demand. This is commerce in the currency of human life." The courtroom monitors displayed spreadsheet after spreadsheet, showing transactions coded with phrases like A+ match, 30K paid, no family contact, fast route, schedule early C-section, uncooperative, threaten repayment clause. Jurors stared, horrified. Defense strategy falters by day 6. It became clear the defense was scrambling. Their primary argument, that West had merely operated in the gray areas of family law, was unraveling. With every witness, that gray turned black. They called only 2 witnesses. One former client who praised West for helping her adopt a baby in 2023, but admitted she had no clue how it happened so quickly, and a retired family court judge, who had once approved several of West's filings, but later admitted under oath, "We trusted the documents presented." In hindsight, that was a mistake. But the turning point came when the prosecution introduced Juliet Kramer, the former intern. Juliet testified for over 4 hours. Calm, measured, devastating. She described the manipulation, the pressure, and the hidden documents. She recalled the moment she refused to notarize a document for an unborn child with no legal review. It felt wrong. Like we weren't helping families. We were arranging shipments. Her testimony included internal chat logs where West allegedly instructed staff, "Don't ask too many questions. Just move the paper. No paper, no pay." The bombshell revelation on day 8. The most explosive testimony came from an anonymous Homeland Security agent who revealed a sealed investigation into international trafficking networks that had been watching West's foreign clients for years. One couple West matched a baby with in 2022 had been under surveillance for suspected black market organ harvesting in Eastern Europe. Another buyer linked to a UAE address was flagged in an Interpol database related to child exploitation. Though not all matches were confirmed criminal, the implication was clear. Clint West had no clue, or worse, no concern, about where these babies ended up. West breaks his silence. The defense stunned the court when they announced Clint West would testify in his own defense. Dressed in a dark suit, eyes tired but unshaken, he took the stand on day 9. He painted himself as a pioneer in modern adoption practices, someone who cut through red tape for the benefit of birth mothers and families alike. "Yes, I was aggressive. Yes, I facilitated fast placements. But I never sold a child. Not once." When pressed on the grading system, he said, "That was just internal shorthand to track compatibility and risk, not value." When asked why some files had cash only and no records, West grew defensive. Some clients wanted privacy, and some birth mothers didn't want their names out there. We respected that. The prosecution's final question was chilling. "Mr. West, do you know where Yasmin Mendoza is?" He hesitated. Then, "No, I don't. The courtroom fell into silence. Closing arguments. Eddie Moreno, in her closing, delivered a searing indictment. He built a business off the backs of women in crisis. He made himself a god in the land of adoption. But he wasn't giving life, he was taking it, piece by piece, paper by paper, until motherhood was just another line item. Defense attorney Rowe, desperate, fell back on fear. If we criminalize every aggressive adoption, we scare away those trying to help. The system's broken, yes, but that doesn't mean Clint West broke it. But it felt hollowed up by the end of day 10. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. The verdict and the search for the missing May 30, 2025, Harris County Criminal Court. The jury didn't look at Clint West as they filed back into the courtroom. 12 men and women, some with tears in their eyes, others stone-faced, took their seats after just 3 hours and 42 minutes of deliberation. It was one of the most closely watched verdicts in recent memory, with news helicopters circling above and major networks cutting in live to broadcast the outcome. The courtroom sat in tense silence. Clint West sat between his attorneys, jaw clenched, a nervous tap echoing from his heel against the polished floor. Just a month ago, he'd stood as a respected figure in Houston's legal community. Now, his fate was being read by a 26-year-old juror from Pasadena. We, the jury, find the defendant, Clint Allen West, guilty on all counts. A gasp swept the gallery. West's mother broke down behind the rail, sobbing into her hands. Several birth mothers in the audience held each other tightly. And Clint West? He didn't move. Not even a blink. The charges he was convicted of included conspiracy to commit international child trafficking, money laundering, forgery of legal adoption documents, wire fraud, falsifying notarized parental consent, operating an unlicensed adoption brokerage. Each charge carried decades of prison time. Combined, West faced a maximum sentence of 275 years. Judge Alana Pierce ordered that sentencing would take place in 3 weeks and denied bail, citing West's risk of flight and possible international ties to criminal trafficking operations. As U.S. Marshals let him out in cuffs, a reporter shouted. "Clint, do you have anything to say to the women whose babies you sold?" He didn't answer, but what no one could ignore, despite the conviction, was the growing, urgent question: where were the missing children? The forgotten ones. By June 2025, federal investigators had confirmed that at least 14 newborns had been adopted out of Texas via West's law firm under false pretenses, meaning no legal review, no family court authorization, and, in some cases, no verifiable record of where the babies had gone. 3 were allegedly sent overseas to couples in countries where inter-country adoption was illegal or tightly regulated. 2 birth mothers reported being told their children were placed into private arrangements, only to later learn the names and contact info they were given were fake. But the most disturbing case remained that of Yasmin Mendoza, the 17-year-old girl who had vanished from her group home just days after giving birth. Her name now dominated headlines across the nation. Where is Yasmin Mendoza? Missing teen mother may hold key to baby trafficking network. Investigators traced her final known movements. She checked into Heartland Women's Birthing Center in Edinburgh, Texas, on March 16, 2024, under the name Maria Torres. She delivered a healthy baby girl 2 days later, but there was no official discharge, no social worker involvement, and no state report. Surveillance footage showed Yasmin leaving the building at 2:23 a.m. through a side exit. She wasn't alone today. Man, tall, wearing a baseball cap and hospital scrubs, escorted her to a black SUV. They never saw her again. A deepening conspiracy. Federal investigators now suspect that Clint West didn't operate alone. His operation may have involved rogue employees, private security drivers, nurses, and even hospital administrators complicit in bypassing required reporting systems. Emails recovered from the encrypted hard drives referenced coded names like Doc, R, Sienna drop-off, hostile pickup 3 a.m. One of the most damning messages was sent by West to a burner email address 6 months before his arrest. It read, "Need discretion for YM. No paperwork this time. Straight transport. She's been flagged." Authorities now believe YM referred to Yasmin Mendoza. Even more troubling, that same burner account received multiple emails from an IP address located in Izmir, Turkey, a city with known child trafficking rings and a history of underground surrogacy operations. Was Yasmin smuggled out of the country? Was she coerced into further trafficking herself? No one knows for sure. The ghost babies aside from Yasmin's child, federal agents launched a search for at least 8 other babies listed in Clint West's files as delivered but never registered. With any Texas family court, their labels in the database were hauntingly vague. M/M, Dallas/sent March 23, twin girls, paid early, no docs, N.T. Matched Berlin couple, confirmed C-section, several hospitals listed in the files had no record of births on those dates, suggesting the babies were delivered at home or in unauthorized birthing centers. This led authorities to raid 3 private clinics across Texas. At one location in El Paso, agents seized hundreds of paper documents, many with whiteout covered sections and forged medical records. Investigators believe these babies were part of what they've now officially dubbed the Ghost Network, a hidden system of underground adoptions with no traceable paper trail that FBI child exploitation. Task Force Agent Monique Tyler put it bluntly. Some of these children may never be found. Some may grow up never knowing they were trafficked. And some, we fear, may not have survived. Public backlash and political fallout. Texas lawmakers faced immediate and unforgiving heat. How could a high-profile attorney conduct such a massive scheme without detection? Where was state oversight? Why were adoptions so loosely regulated, especially in private placements? The case led to emergency hearings in the Texas legislature, where advocates demanded mandatory legal representation for all birth mothers real-time, registration of all private adoption contracts, stricter immigration scrutiny for newborns leaving the country, enhanced hospital reporting of all childbirths involving minors or private arrangements. Governor Raul Mendez, under pressure from both sides of the political aisle, signed an executive order halting all international adoptions originating in Texas until further review. Meanwhile, dozens of Texas-based adoption attorneys were being re-examined for irregularities. A new term emerged in headlines: the baby barons, referring to high-powered lawyers who used loopholes to profit off vulnerable women. Victims step into the light. In the aftermath of West's conviction, dozens of birth mothers came forward. Some admitted to being coerced. Others said they were misled about the process. A few confessed they were paid under the table, but only because they were desperate. One woman, Danielle Reyes, spoke at a press conference while holding a photo of her son. "They told me I'd get updates. I got one postcard, then silence. I don't want him back. I just want to know he's okay. Is that so much to ask?" Danielle's baby, listed as Reyes, April 2023, Spain match in Clint West's files, was never logged with the Texas Adoption Registry. The Spanish government says it has no record of the child entering their country. He is now considered missing. From courtroom to prison. On June 20th, 2025, Clint West was sentenced to 165 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole. Judge Alana Pierce, during sentencing, said, "You corrupted the sacred act of giving a child a home. You preyed on the powerless, the desperate, and the voiceless. And you did so not out of necessity, but out of greed." West remained expressionless. When asked if he wanted to speak, he declined. He was escorted from the courtroom without a single word to the mothers, families, or media. But the story isn't over. Even with Clint West behind bars, the fallout continues. 3 new arrest warrants have been issued for suspected co-conspirators, including a former nurse at a private birthing center and a courier believed to have facilitated overseas transfers. Interpol is involved in tracking the overseas buyers. Yasmin Mendoza's face is now on billboards across 5 states and posted in every major U.S. embassy abroad. The Department of Justice has pledged to uncover every connection and recover as many missing children as possible. But for now, justice feels unfinished. The baby market, what we didn't see coming. June 2025, the fallout begins. Even with Clint Allen West locked away for the rest of his life, the shock of what he'd done reverberated through every courtroom, social work agency, hospital, and foster care program in the country. What began as the story of one corrupt adoption attorney had ballooned into something far larger, a revelation about a hidden global baby market. And the uncomfortable truth no one wanted to face was this: Clint West was not the only one. He was just the one who got caught. That a system built on desperation. In the weeks following West's conviction, over 80 tip lines lit up across the United States. Women in Texas, Arizona, and Louisiana came forward with eerily similar stories. Private lawyers promising discreet adoptions, pregnancies timed to foreign travel windows, cash incentives. Disguised as living stipends, mothers who never saw their children again. One woman in Lubbock said she was offered $40,000 to deliver at home with a private midwife and relinquish her baby immediately. No judge, no paperwork. Another in San Antonio recalled being flown to Atlanta in her 8th month of pregnancy, giving birth under a pseudonym, and never hearing another word about her child's fate. They told me I was lucky, but I feel like I sold my baby to a ghost. Investigators from the FBI and the Department of Health and Human Services launched a nationwide sweep of so-called adoption facilitators, a loosely regulated class of middlemen often operating in legal gray zones. The results were staggering. In just 3 weeks, authorities uncovered 16 unregistered birthing centers, 9 attorneys under active investigation, over 30 undocumented adoption transactions, 2 ongoing operations suspected of selling babies to buyers in the UAE, Guatemala, and Bulgaria. Inside the underground baby market, what many Americans didn't know is that private adoption laws vary wildly by state, and in some cases do not require judicial oversight. That means if a lawyer is savvy enough and unethical enough, they can legally match pregnant women with adoptive parents, handle all documents in-house, and finalize the transaction without ever involving a judge or state agency. Combine that with a booming international demand for American-born infants, viewed in many countries as more desirable due to citizenship status and perceived health, and the result is a lucrative underground pipeline. An internal DOJ memo leaked to the press described the phenomenon as follows: "We are witnessing the emergence of a black market adoption ecosystem. Legal loopholes, desperate mothers, cash-rich clients, and a system that lacks the infrastructure to protect the most vulnerable participants." This wasn't just about Clint West anymore. This was about the gaping holes in the American adoption system. And who was exploiting them? The international angle. Interpol agents now believe Clint West was part of an informal network that spanned 5 countries and relied on discreet couriers, encrypted communications, and falsified immigration documents to move newborns across borders. The babies, once adopted under fabricated legal orders, were often issued new birth certificates in their destination countries, erasing any connection to their biological parents. Several of West's clients remain under investigation. A couple in Berlin, suspected of using 3 different attorneys to acquire infants from 3 different U.S. states. That a businessman in Dubai, whose name appeared in encrypted files West attempted to delete before his arrest. That a fertility clinic operator in Guatemala City, who had received wire transfers from a bank account linked to West's firm. Though not every adoptive parent knew they were participating in illegal activity, prosecutors say some clearly did. "We found emails where clients specifically requested fast routes or asked to avoid home studies," one agent said. "They weren't innocent bystanders. They were buyers." The babies no one can find. At least 8 infants tied to Clint West remain unaccounted for. No records, no health data, no confirmed locations. These children, referred to in internal documents as the Shadow 8, are believed to have been placed in countries where international adoption is banned or strictly controlled, including Turkey, Russia, China, Lebanon. Some were born to teenage mothers who never returned to claim them. Others were taken directly from hospitals that have since faced intense scrutiny for failing to report suspicious discharges. One of the most heartbreaking discoveries came when investigators traced one baby's travel route from Houston to Miami to a private charter flight to the Cayman Islands. The child's trail ended there. "We fear some of these children have already been rehomed, renamed, and removed from any traceable system," said FBI spokesperson Maria Lynn. "For the birth mothers, the pain is indescribable. I just want to know if my baby's okay," said Aaliyah, a 19-year-old from Waco. "I thought I was doing the right thing. They promised me updates. I haven't seen a picture since the day she was born." Lawmakers respond, but is it too late? In response to the scandal, the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee convened an emergency session on June 18, 2025. Testifying. Were adoption experts former child welfare workers grieving birth mothers? A former midwife who worked under Westone line from the hearing went viral. The adoption system didn't fail. It functioned exactly how it was designed: opaque, unregulated, and easy to abuse. By the end of the day, lawmakers pledged a sweeping package of reforms: mandatory judicial review for all private adoptions, national database tracking of all inter-country placements, 24/7 hotline for birth mothers to report coercion or illegal payments, federal oversight of all adoption agencies, and legal facilitators, background checks, and home studies required for all adoption-related attorneys and clinics. But critics say it's too little, too late, that West's actions exploited decades of legal neglect, and thousands of families may have been affected before he was ever caught. And what about Yasmin? Despite massive public awareness, Yasmin Mendoza is still missing. Her image has been broadcast across Interpol bulletins, featured on America's Most Wanted, and displayed on digital billboards in every major U.S. city. But not a single credible sighting has emerged. The working theory is that Yasmin, traumatized, threatened, and likely moved across state lines, may have assumed a new identity or been absorbed into the same network that trafficked her newborn daughter. Federal investigators now suspect she was promised money, protection, or safe passage in exchange for her silence and her disappearance. But many refuse to give up. Yasmin isn't a runaway, said former intern Juliet Kramer. She's a survivor. And if she's out there, we owe it to her and to that baby to keep looking. Final reflections. A Nation Awakes. The story of Clint West started as a shocking headline: a greedy attorney, a secret operation, unborn children sold for profit. But by the time it ended, it had become a dark mirror reflecting something more sinister: a country where the vulnerable are commodified, where desperation becomes a contract, and where babies born into poverty or uncertainty can be traded like property. This case forced America to confront questions it's long avoided. Why is adoption so expensive and so difficult? Why are there so few protections for birth mothers? And who is truly watching the watchers? For the children taken, for the mothers left behind, and for the babies we may never find. Justice cannot end with one conviction. It must be built from the ground up.
What did you think of the case? Please share your thoughts in the comment below. If you want more video like this, please be sure to like the video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on more true crime videos. See you in the next one.